All right, we're going to move into the next fundamental, which is fundamental number 8, style. But
we got to throw in a little caveat.
Yeah, before you move into style, hopefully you guys understand by now that we're never skipping ahead to style. Right?
So if any of you guys watched or looked at the list of videos and skipped straight to this one, this is for you.
Go back to fundamental number 1. Because style, like we've talked about so far, is the icing on the cake, right? It's the thing that comes after you bake the cake. Now, you can be kind of mixing the icing. You can be deciding what color you want it to be and all that fun stuff. But just remember that your style is going to be way more effective if your foundational technique is established first. So we're just going to throw that out there. Don't skip ahead to the fun part.
Right. Just similar to what we talked about in the last example, or in the last fundamental, where we talked about the person who liked to sing 80s rock, right? Mm-hmm. If you get to the point where you're so stuck on style that you can't at that point work on your technique because it's getting in the way, then it takes so long to get to the point where you have to disconnect the style from what you're used to be
so
able to actually work on technique.
Yeah, it gets really tricky at that point. So let's dive into style then, knowing that this is fundamental number 8 for a reason.
Right.
It's not the thing that comes first, guys, okay? But it is the thing that everyone wants to get to. So let's talk about it. So style is really singing with emotion.
Right.
It's your unique sound. It can be, we kind of talked about in the very beginning fundamentals about the indie sound when we were talking about vowels.
And I would say indie sound is the one where people jump into it at a very young age. Yeah. A lot of kids jump in with this indie sound before they've established any kind of technique.
And really that sound can hold you back because the E is so closed. And we talked about how all the vowels go to an E. And so if you don't understand how to navigate through your voice before you're throwing all of that heavy style on it, it can really hinder you. And really, what it really does is it shrinks down your range quite a bit because it keeps you from actually getting into other places of your voice. And so it's interesting to note that we find freedom in style because it's like how we express ourselves, and it's what makes us unique. But it also kind of holds us back if we don't have that foundation first. Or, I mean, we do have singers that come in all the time who started out with their style, because a lot of people start there by mimicking other singers that they love. And then we just have to build out the foundation underneath them. So that is possible to do. But if you're starting from a blank slate, let's start from fundamental number 1.
Like in an ideal vocal coach world.
Oh,
that's how you would want people to start, right? Like come in there and they've had this great background where they've had come from an environment where they've had a lot of singing and just hearing and having fun, but then start from the basics, start from fundamental 1 and work your way up before you add in your country twang or your indie ease or...
Well, that's like the perfect world, but that's not how it works usually. Because people come in super pumped up and already have their own style. So I'm not diminishing you establishing your unique style on your own at all, by any means, but just understand that you're going to be able to do way more with it if you have your foundations down too. And so if you haven't built out those foundations, go back and do it, and know that in the building out of your foundation, while you're doing that, that's not going to diminish your style and it's not going to get rid of it. We're not trying to get rid of what you love about your voice and what makes you unique. We're just trying to give you more skills so that you can amplify it.
Right, because I've heard this from a lot of people. They're worried that if they come in for vocal lessons, that it'll get rid of their style, right? Because they're like, okay, you just want me to sound like this, and you don't want me to have the sound that I want.
And that's actually true in a lot of cases with a lot of vocal coaches, because the unfortunate thing is a lot of vocal coaches have sounds that they want to hear and that they like to hear. And so they'll pigeonhole their students into a specific sound. And so, rock singers are like, I don't sound raw anymore. I don't have the sounds that I want anymore. And so there's like the stigma around taking voice lessons, right? Especially if you go in and take with a purely classical coach, guys, they're not going to give you the sound of a pop singer. So obviously, don't do that. But and not to diminish them, because they're doing incredible things in the classical world. But if you're a pop singer, don't do that, because you're not going to get the sound you want. So bringing it back just understand, if you're with a great coach and you're learning really good technique, it's going to make your style amplified. And that's what a good coach will do for you, is they will amplify who you want to be and spotlight that and give you the tools to make it easier and better than, making you be something you're not.
Right. And to go with your cake and frosting analogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what you ultimately want is this big, like, structurally beautiful cake that's built delicious, and then you put the icing over the top, just a nice, like, coating of it on there, right? It accents, it brings a little more flavor to it, instead of like this crappy floppy cake with thick frosting all over it.
Yeah, you want yes, very good. It's like sunk in the middle.
Yeah,
and
just
the frosting is like lumpy.
And you eat the actual cake and it tastes like crap.
Yeah, we don't want that kind of cake. That's gross. No, yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, the funny thing about the frosting analogy is that a lot of people will just pile on more and more style to try to cover up the fact that their voice doesn't work.
Right.
And so, and it can serve you guys. We're not beating you up if that's what you've done, but it does happen a lot. It does.
Right. But
let's
really,
build a fluffy, beautiful cake.
right, with where the style accents and adds emotional flavor and tone to it, right?
Yeah.
Instead of being the whole thing that you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, because style is, if you guys do crazy riffing, if you have just cool vowel combinations, if you like to let your voice flip into falsetto, there's like so many things that you can do to have a cool style in your singing. But just understand that it's so much more than just a flavor. It's also your emotions. It's what it makes people feel. And so that's where the style actually brings the emotion back in, where we're talking about technique is the application of technique to song. We kind of sing it stale. Once we have that foundation down on the song, then we invite the emotion back in. We invite all of these really cool things that you do back in so that we can make the listener feel something. Because I'm sure everybody's seen this. You watch some performers, and especially when they're beginner performers and they're like nervous out of their mind, and they're up on the stage and all they're trying to do is keep their voice together.
Yeah.
And so they're purely focused on just their technique. And you see people do that sometimes, and there's no connection to the audience. What we want to do is move you past that point of overthinking your technique, so it's just muscle memory, so that we can get into feeling something and allowing the audience to feel something with you. And one other last thing is just remember that this is the point where we start to tune your acoustics to get the sounds you want. So that if you want more twang in country, or if you want more of a darker tone because you're going to do like a popra sound, or if you want to go into a raw rock sound, like that's where we're going to start to do that with your acoustics as well.
So a good coach should be able to build up your foundation and then help you apply your own unique style that fits within the genre that you want to sing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And amplify your style. Amplify your unique style.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Well, should we move on to a tip?
Yep.
Let's move on to the tip. Okay, so getting into style, it gets a little bit tricky. And the reason why is because at this point in the game, everybody's voice is so different. We've built our fantastic foundational technique and we're feeling optimal. And now, how do we get that very unique sound? And it varies from voice to voice, from genre to genre. And then even within every specific genre, there are different nuances that we want to look for our style. So I'm not going to give you a specific tip for style because everyone is so different. But what I do want to do is give you an overarching idea to keep in mind when you start implementing your own unique style. So we're always coming at our songs from foundation first. Like we were just talking about, it's like baking that cake and then decorating the cake afterwards, right? So what I want you to always think about is when you're starting to build your style, start from just that foundation. Start from, okay, this is how I'm going to sing the song, almost in that like robotic monotone type of feel where it's just, this is my exact technique and this is where it feels optimal and it feels good. Okay, now I want to add the first layer of style. And it's almost like taking that cake and we're going to put one layer of icing on it first. We're not just going to like heap a whole bowl on it at once. It's going to be like, okay, let's apply that first layer. Do we want more? Cool. Let's go for the next layer. Okay, do we want sprinkles? Okay, let's go for those. But you're not going to take like 5 cans of sprinkles and put them all on at the same time. So it's really strategic, and it's a good thing when you're trying to just figure out what your style is and how far to go with it, to just do one little thing at a time and continually add. And as you do that and you're strategically adding your style, you can still kind of check in with, okay, does my voice still feel balanced enough to be healthy? Do I still feel like I have the stamina that I want? Do I still have my range? Is that too much twang? Is it taking my range away? You know, you can start to kind of weigh that in the balance and say, okay, is there too much icing on the cake? Is there enough? Is my cake sinking because there's so much icing on the cake? So just one layer at a time. And then if you feel like you do go too far, it's really easy to kind of pull it back and go, okay, back to optimal, build it out again. And I just want you to keep that in mind as you're moving and moving and moving, because the idea of technique, again, isn't to take away from your unique sound and take away from all your nuanced, beautiful singing. It's to give you more capability and more agility to be able to do what you actually want to do, to make your voice more free, more range, all of that. So like I said, as you're adding that style on, just be really strategic with every single layer that you're putting on. And then don't be afraid to scale back and then try it again. And then just keep moving in that direction. And then going on even further, there's also a difference between, singing in a recording studio and singing on a stage. If you're in a recording studio, you can have take after take after take. And you can try things and you can be crazy with it and you can just go for it and experiment, which is really, really fun. But remember that when you're on stage, it's really important to understand what your boundaries are, how far we can push things so that you don't blow your voice out, so that you can still sing on pitch and you can last through a show and you can go on a tour and do all of those things. So there's going to be varying degrees of how much style you're using and how much you're playing it safe, depending on the venue that you're performing in. So keep that in mind, but always just bring it back to what optimal is for you and then make that style work for you instead of making your voice work for the style.
We hope you guys are enjoying the Fundamentals of Singing video series here on YouTube. If you guys want more free resources on how we help our artists here at Invictivox, please check out the Invictivox Radio podcast on YouTube or any major podcast platform.